What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast. My name is Sam Thrash, and I'm your show host over here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode during hunting season. And we're going to talk about some whitetail hunting and some of that stuff today. My guest is our staff manager over here at Fall Obsession, Todd Sellon. We're keeping this podcast in-house, as I like to call it, talking and conversating with our own staff. So hope you guys enjoy this conversation. It is down to earth, laid back. We talk whitetail hunting, whitetail behavior, hunting strategies, all sorts of stuff like that. Just a quick and casual conversation, kind of like one you would have in deer camp, talking about some of the experiences we've already had in the woods so far this year. So I enjoy these kind of conversations, and I'm hoping to bring more of them to you guys in the coming weeks, as we have several staff members across the country here at Fall Obsession that have been putting down some deer already this year, have some awesome stories to tell, and we're going to try to get them on the show in the weeks to come to share that with all of you. So be looking out for that. But before we get into it with Todd, we're going to talk about the sponsors and the partners real quick that make Fall Obsession Podcast possible. Thanks for hanging with us during this short little segment. But the first one is Hoot Camo. Been rocking the Hoot gear for a couple seasons now. Todd's been wearing it also. He loves it. I love it. It's great quality gear. The pattern is versatile. It works well in a ton of different environments. I've worn it in Colorado. I've worn it in Idaho. I've worn it down here in Texas a ton. And it does the job every single time. I can't say enough good stuff about Hoot Camo and the folks over there. So if you guys want to go shop around, go to hootcamo.com. Check out all the gear that they have on there, their lifestyle wear, their fishing wear, golf gear, all that kind of stuff that they have for you guys. They have it all, and it's all at a price point that's realistic for the blue-collar hunter if you are looking at getting into a good quality set of camo. So go to hootcamo.com, see what all they have. Use the code FALLOBSESSION15 at checkout, and that will save you guys some money. News on Safaris is a Fall Obsession podcast partner. If you guys are looking to book that next big African safari adventure, you need to do it with News On. We have people both on our team and outside of our organization that have hunted with News On and had a great experience. And what's even better is that News On is offering Fall Obsession podcast listeners a discount and some savings if you book with them and just tell them that Fall Obsession sent you. That's literally all that you have to do. And here's what you're going to get. If you tell them that, you get a $500 trophy credit, free lodging, food, and drinks. Your professional hunter, tracker, and skinner fees are going to be covered. Your basic trophy prep is taken care of. All of that totals out to a $2,250 value per hunter, and that's valid for up to 4 people in your hunting party. So if you do the math on that, you could be saving up to $9,000 on an already expensive safari, no matter who you book with. So book with News On, save the money, tell them Fall Obsession sent you. All that you got to do is call Tim. His number's 303-946-9441. Again, that's Tim. And tell him that Fall Obsession sent you, and he'll get you set up with News On Safaris. Trophy Edits is a Fall Obsession partner. If you guys have had that photo, perhaps already even this year, where it's a memorable moment, a memorable hunt, something significant for you, and you're looking forward to seeing that photo, and it just doesn't do the moment justice. Maybe it's blurry, out of focus, maybe the lighting's wrong, it's too dark, whatever it might be. What Trophy Edits does is it's a professional team that will take that image, they'll clean it up, they'll do all the hard work for you and make the most out of your hunting or outdoor memory. You can go to the link for Trophy Edits that's in this podcast description. That will take you over there. You can start shopping around, and by using that link, you let them know that you came from us. We always appreciate that. Go check out Trophy Edits. The Outdoor Call radio app is a Fall Obsession partner. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV. He created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. Fall Obsession podcast streams on that loop on Mondays. That's the same day as our new publications, as well as tons of other hunting shows and podcasts that we all know and love. Go download the Outdoor Call radio app today. It's free. You can start streaming immediately. And be sure that you follow Outdoors Dan and the Outdoor Call radio app on social media, because they do some live radio shows in the Midwest throughout the week, and they share those live broadcasts on their Facebook Live. The Outdoor Call radio app, go download it today. Ridge Rock Hunt Company is a Fall Obsession partner. Derek Eves is the man over there in Mississippi, and if you are looking to book a hunt with a vetted and trusted outfitter in North America, then Derek is the guy you need to call. He asks all the right questions, finds out exactly what you're looking for, and sets you up with somebody that he knows and trusts. Ridge Rock Hunt Company, go check them out. Finally, thank you guys for tuning in to another Fall Obsession podcast. Whatever podcast platform you are listening on, please hit that follow or subscribe button, whatever they have up there for you, and make sure those notifications are turned on if that's an option. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. We got some awesome videos in the editing room that are going to be coming down the pipe here pretty soon. Go to fallobsession.com. That's the website. That's the hub. That's where you guys can find all of our content filtering through. Be sure that you follow us on all the major social media platforms. We post daily, especially during hunting season right now, multiple times a day perhaps, because we have our staff across the country that is doing so many amazing things right now, and we're sharing all that content on those pages. Go stream our shows on Carbon TV. This podcast plays on there, as well as our staff-inspired video podcast series, Couch Chats, and our two different hunting shows, Midwest Mindset and Texas Dirt, can also be found there on Carbon TV. Hit that share button. Get this content out there to all your friends and hunting buddies. That's how you can help this brand grow, and it's a $0 investment that serves us well. So we always appreciate y'all doing that. All right, with that, I'm wrapping up the intro, and we're going to go over to our episode and this conversation I had with Todd Sellon, our staff manager here at Fall Obsession. You guys are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down.
Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast. I'm Sam, and joining me for this episode is our staff manager here at Fall Obsession, Todd Sellon. Welcome back to the show, man.
Hey Sam, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining me again. Always a good time.
Always a good time. Always good to see you. Always good to talk to you. Hang out with you virtually. It's great to hang out with you in person, but you know how that goes. So.
Yeah, that doesn't always happen, and that's how we roll here at Fall Obsession. We're obviously grateful for the opportunities that our staff does have across the country in both big and small capacities to spend time in hunting camp or hanging out if somebody's just passing through town, whatever. But when that's not possible, we try to make it work virtually around here. So that's the world we live in.
It's amazing with the way technology is. I've had this thought often, back in the day when you had to make friends from other states and that sort of thing, and you correspond maybe once a year, back in the day when we were growing up. And since with technology, man, it's like you said, it's a daily thing with our staffers,
Oh yeah. Just being able to touch base with anybody. I mean, the obvious cell phones and texting and stuff, but then Zoom or all these different apps you can video chat on now too at just the click of a button is pretty incredible. And even from our podcast world, we started small with recording a lot of local stuff, and then we expanded to at least having people on the phone with us, and then one day we were able to broaden it to having virtual videos and this kind of stuff to go with it. So pretty cool.
In fact, I think when I interviewed with you, and Drew, and we were on the phone. We did it via phone.
Yeah.
And it was a three-way call. We're like, oh, look at this technology. It's a three-way call.
Yeah. I do remember that. Yourself and several other team members that came on board around that time frame, it was all phone calls. Honestly, I think it was probably all phone calls until you started doing the interviews as well. I think that's when we kind of added the video element, or somewhere around in that time, it seemed like. But yeah.
So it's nice to always put a face with a name. Obviously we get the people that apply, and you see their name, you do the research, and you see their pictures on their socials, but it's really cool to connect, as we mentioned at the beginning here. You can see your face. It's like a face-to-face conversation as opposed to just kind of corresponding.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, and we talked about this beforehand, but so that everybody kind of knows the direction that some future episodes are going to go, is we have staffers all across the country in tons of different states and different environments that have different hunting experiences. And for anybody that doesn't know about that, you can go to our website and look at our staff page and see all the folks that we have contributing to the team and everything, all of our content creators. But hunting season's obviously here, so we have folks that are getting it done out there in the woods. They're laying down some nice deer that have some awesome experiences and stories to go with it. So think of this like the pilot episode almost, to kind of a run of some Fall Obsession staffer stories on Fall Obsession podcast this year. I can't say that they're all going to be sequential to one another just because of, schedules and recording dates and all that kind of stuff. We'll do our best, but there's going to be some episodes coming up, starting with this one where I like to call them in-house episodes, where we're talking with our own people, talking hunting and some 2024 deer hunting experiences. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm excited because we've had some awesome deer hit the ground already this year.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good deer. We've had a lot of success so far, and as you and I were talking, we're not quite to the middle of the Michigan season yet. I mean, we got rifle season starting next week, so we're starting to wrap up archery. We can continue to hunt archery, but as I was talking with Sam prior to the start of the podcast, once guns start going off, it's you almost have to pick up a rifle here in Michigan because like tonight, for example, I had several deer within bow range, but again, once those guns go off, you're not going to get them within bow range. So you're not going to do yourself any good if you go out there and sit with the bow. I mean, you go out there and sit and listen to all the guns going off and watch the deer running in on the field, and maybe come with 100 yards, but that you aren't going to get the shot that you're looking for, and probably not seeing the deer that you really want either. So at that time, you can't be as picky as you are now.
Yeah. So, kind of for our listeners, Todd, kind of set the stage a little bit, just as far as the setup that you guys have, you and Heather up there in Michigan, as far as the land that y'all have to hunt. You already touched on how you hunt earlier in the year with bows, and then you transition coming up here soon to rifle season and everything like that. But we have listeners that might have found the show within the last year, and it's been about a year probably since you and I were on here talking about just deer hunting, right? So
yeah, the deer we missed.
Yeah, the deer we missed. I still remember. That's episode 165. If anybody wants to go back and listen to Todd and I's sob stories from last year, but all that is to say, set the stage for us and kind of educate us on what you guys have set up to hunt up there and your normal recon and everything leading into deer season, all that good stuff.
Sure, absolutely. So Heather and I live on her family farm. So when Heather and I first started dating, Heather is the eldest grandchild, and when we started dating, her grandma got sick, who lived on this farm. They moved her out into a nursing home, and said they offered us an opportunity to move in and kind of work the land and take and really just kind of take over the land instead of it just sitting here. And so that's kind of what we did. So on the farm itself, we have 56 acres on the side that we live. And then across the street is Heather's dad, and he has 27. So originally it was a 83 acre farm. And then they put a road in between that split it up into a 56 and a 27 acre parcel. So Heather and I live on the 56 acre. And then of course her dad lives across the street. And so we have, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stands set up between the two sides. And so I have a 13 acre, the back 13 acres is rented out to a local farmer who has usually plants corn, but he'll rotate soybeans in every now and then. And then right now he planted winter wheat, which is awesome because what we found with winter wheat and deer, it doesn't matter the conditions. It doesn't matter the time of day. Deer are always hunting that winter wheat and just eating. And winter wheat's the green field that everybody sees. Everybody talks about a green field. Well, it's winter wheat usually. So we always got deer out there. So any rate, so I got a set up on the east side, a set up on the west side of that field. I also have a couple of shooting shacks. We have kind of, because we've got a ravine that kind of runs through and then we have thicker woods in between. And then across the street. So across the street was farmed as well. But then when I don't remember when they've stopped farming. I don't remember when that happened. But at any rate, Heather and I started kind of tilling it and working the land again when we got our horses. And so we would rotate pastures with our horses. Well, during COVID, we decided to um, we decided to make a food plot. So over there. So my dog is yapping. I don't know why.
That's all right. We can add it to the Fall Obsession dog saga. We've had plenty of dogs pop up on the show over the years.
So Heather and I, we built a food plot over there just to see what would happen because we didn't have anything else to do during COVID, and we put a couple stands up over there, and it turns out that's actually our best bow setup because if deer come in, they're going to be within bow range right away. Whereas if you're out back, you can see deer when they first come in the field, but they may be 400, 500, 600 yards away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it takes them a while to get across sometimes. So
Gotcha.
so we hunt. So typically, and what I found this year, and actually Ryan showed me this when we were in New York on the Tacticams. Man, he showed me all the stats that you can pull from your Tacticam, and it that your Tacticam will show you what wind direction you're getting the most pictures of deer on, what moon phase, what temperature, it gives you all kinds of statistics. And so I've been playing that game this year more than any year. Well, for the first time, only because I didn't know about that. Ryan showed me about it, and I'll tell you what, playing that statistic game, it seems like every time I've gone out, I've seen a good quality buck. Like even tonight, like I said, I didn't get a shot, but I've seen them. They ran through,
Yeah.
decent does. And that's what I've been doing. I've been looking at the wind, and like today was a northwest wind. So I'd look at my cameras and I'd punch in northwest wind, and it shows me that camera 2 across the street, I've got 300 pictures of, but camera 3 I only got 50 pictures of with the northwest wind. And so that tells me more of the activity is across the street. So that's where I went and hunted across the street tonight. So
That's pretty cool. We were talking
yeah,
about technology and what it allows you to do, man. Cell cams and those reveals. Holy cow. What the stuff
yeah, I'm
that they
telling
can
you.
do is incredible.
And then it shows you the time of day where you're getting the majority of your pictures. So I think across the street it's like 8 in the morning till 10, and then again from 4 till 6.
Yeah.
And so the in between, and honestly, that's exactly what it is. Like I said, I got out there today at about 3:30, and it was about 4 o'clock. I started seeing deer right away, and it was nonstop all night. So,
Yeah. Wow.
but yeah. So anyway, that's kind of the setup we have, but typically, but before using technology, I would just kind of wing it.
Yeah.
I go to one side of the field early in the year and sit there and then just kind of get a feel for where the deer are. And if I see the majority of the deer on the west side, well, then I'd move over to the west side. And then if something happened where all of a sudden I wasn't seeing as many deer, I'd go back to the east side, or if I wasn't seeing deer at all in the backfield, then I'd go across the street and see what's going on over there. So it was a lot of that. I'd have cameras up, but prior to getting my Tacticams, I had the SD cards, and you know how you could pull that, and you could have 1,000 pictures on there, and 999 are weed blowing in the wind.
Yep, exactly.
And it takes you 3 days to get through all the cart, all the
Yeah.
pictures. But
I've been trying to quote unquote hunt smarter, and I told my dad the other day, I was like, hunting was so much easier when I was dumber. I told him that, I was like, when I would just wing it, because I'm constantly like, and I get that it's exactly that, the smarter thing to do, but looking at wind direction, looking at deer patterns on the Tacticams and all this kind of stuff, it's just like you almost get exhausted with it sometimes, and
Yeah.
I have six on our place, six prime archery spots that I'm normally hunting in one of them. So I'm constantly juggling these six spots as far as looking and trying to make a decision on where I'm going to hunt. And so far this year for me, I feel like I've made the wrong decision. Not based off of the wrong information. I've made a decision, what I feel like was the right decision based off the information that I had. But when I was
Mhm.
out there last, the rut was just starting to kick off, so the deer were kind of getting pushed around and outside their normal routine a little bit. And
Right.
yeah, I felt like I would get in a stand, and while I'm in the stand, my phone's just buzz, 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 just
Yeah.
trail cam pictures from other stands. I'm like, why am I sitting here? Why did I choose this one? Well, I chose this one because this is what all my data was telling me to go to, but for some reason, like I don't know, this stuff, I feel like I'm in the dead zone and everywhere else is popping off. So
Right. Or at night when you're trying to sleep and you hear your phone going zzz, zzz, zzz. Like, oh, another picture.
yeah, I'll be uh I'll be asleep or going to sleep, and my wife's like, "Put your phone on sleep mode or put your phone on silent. I don't want to
Yeah,
listen to your
shut it
trail
off.
cameras all night."
Yeah, same here, same here.
Yeah,
But going back to using the technology last Saturday, I never hunt in the morning just because I take that back. I'll hunt in the morning, opening day of rifle season, but that's typically about the only time I hunt, just because traditionally it's not that good to hunt in the morning, not as good as hunting in the evening around this area. It seems like it. I could go out and see maybe 10 deer in the morning and not even get a chance to shoot any type of deer, any kind of deer. Whereas in the evening, you may have several opportunities in the evening to take whatever deer you want, and you may see 50 deer in the evening. And so when you're working all week and you need that extra rest on the weekends, a lot of times most of the time I just sleep in and then I hunt in the evening. But
yeah,
so I went out last Saturday only because I knew it was supposed to be cold. So it was 28 degrees in the morning, and I was going to go out behind our house, and I was trying to figure out which side to sit on, the east or west side, because there was no wind. And so I just wanted to kind of monitor the deer activity and see which side to sit on. I know that if I went to the east side, I could sneak in a lot easier as opposed to walking all the way across an open field in the dark. And so when I woke up in the morning, my phone was going nuts with pictures. And I'm like, okay. So I open it up, and sure enough, the camera on the far side of the field, the west side of the field, was getting a ton of pictures. I'm like, okay, yeah, there's no way I can hunt that stand. So I'm gonna have to go on the east side, because if I go all the way across, I'm gonna bust all those deer out of there. So yeah, sure enough, I sat on the east side and started seeing deer even before light on my. They were all over on my side, and then when the light came up, there was a ton of deer over on the west side, and then
huh?
um, yeah, and it was constant. And like I said, it was 28 degrees, and I do love those mornings where you go out there and it's cold, so you really got to bundle up, and you're nice and comfortable, and you feel the crisp air, and it's just so refreshing. And the sun comes up, and that's always the coldest part of the day, when the sun first comes up. And I look down, and I got like frost on my arrow, and I got like it's glistening on my arms, and so I got frost all over me. I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the deer are really, really active. So,
There were some
but
mornings
yeah,
in the mountains that were kind of like that. I haven't gotten to experience 28 degrees in Texas yet, but when we were up in Idaho, there were some mornings we would wake up, it'd be below freezing, and yeah, on the
uh-huh.
side of a mountain, your bow would have frost on it or whatever the case might
Yeah,
be. It was pretty cool.
yeah, it is.
I wanted to ask you about, because you just mentioned how it's you have better hunting, it seems, in the evening time than the
Yeah,
morning time in your area.
yeah.
Are there specific reasons why it is that way in your area that you found, or
Not that I found. There's really no rhyme or reason. You know, in for years now, I've tried to hunt. When I first started hunting, I'd hunt both. I'd always hunt in the morning and evening, and that was just kind of our thing. And I've always experienced. I I know for a fact that in the past, if I were to go out, I would sit there and I would see deer from 9 to 9:30 in the morning, and then that would be it. you know, um, and talking to my neighbors and some of the other people that hunt in the area here, same thing. They've always said that hunting in the morning is just not very good around here.
hmm,
And so, um, but there are times. I mean, not, and that's not to say that there aren't times that are good. Like I said, Saturday it just so happened that was a good morning. It was a really good morning for us. When I ended up shooting that doe and I shot a turkey, and right after I shot the doe, I could have shot a 9 point. So I had a couple bucks actually come in too. A 9 point and 8 point both came in right after I
wow.
shot the doe. And so, but I had seen a bigger deer the night before across the street. So my thought was to try to get him. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to. I got one more buck tag left. I didn't want to use it on a. He's probably a 2.5-year-old 9-point, so he was a younger deer, but it was a nice looking deer. But
Yeah.
I saw a bigger one, so I was trying to get a bigger one. So there is no really rhyme or reason why. I don't really know why, but I do know it seems like the colder it is, the better it is. You know what I mean? So I know I've been out there before when it was blizzarding and just snowing so hard, and you see deer kind of off in the distance moving. Obviously, deer are going to move when it's cooler out, and depending on the time of year, this time of year when we're thick in the rut, you're going to see deer all the time. They're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
be moving all the time. So yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I can't figure out why it's not good to hunt mornings here. So
Interesting. Yeah,
yeah, it is.
it's been weird for us this year because our rut kicked in out at our place on the Texas dirt property, like, man, almost 2 weeks early. I feel like, because normally in my mind it's like kind of that early midish November, somewhere in there, like
Mm-hmm.
that second
Mm-hmm.
full week of November, if you will, that we have. That's really when it's really good, it seems like. And this year, I mean, we were out there October, well, Halloween, October 31st, and November
Right.
1st, rifle season, general season opening on November 2nd. And we were already seeing deer like with rut behavior. And by the time that next week had come in, the first full week of general
Mm-hmm.
season, it was just like all of the does that I have some stands that just congregate does every morning and every evening. There's just all these does and fawns there,
Right.
and all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden it would just be a straggler doe or a ghost town in the mornings. And when there's normally a bunch there, it's like, okay, the bucks are
Yeah.
pushing them. The bucks have them
Yeah.
running outside their normal routine. And then all
Right.
the target bucks, their patterns started changing. They started showing up at different stands, different parts of the property at different times,
Yeah.
daylighting, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it kicked off early. My dad was able to get out there and get one on the ground. I guess it was Monday or
Yeah. So
Tuesday morning. So
you said you're number 4 in the hit list.
yeah, I put that reel on our social media before I went out there. I got 3 hunts
Mhm.
and talking about kind of my dilemma, trying to figure out where I should set myself up to try and shoot one of the 4 target bucks. So,
Right.
and in the order that I listed them in that video, my
Mhm.
number one, my number two, and then I think I actually showed number 4 before I showed number 3. Number 3 being the big, I
Mhm.
call them the big heavy 8 that
Right.
I had already daylighting. But that buck that I showed has a split G2 or split G1, a split brow, and my dad
Uh-huh.
shot him, got him on the ground. So that was our number 4 hit lister. My big heavy, that one, he's disappeared. I don't. He's either running does somewhere else or somebody might have already shot him. But at least within the last
Gotcha.
24 hours at the time of recording this,
Yeah. Yeah.
I have confirmation. Number 1 and number 2 are still out there, still running
Oh,
around. So
gotcha. Have you tried to do the analytics and looked at your Tacticams?
so I
Because
go ahead.
you could even pull up wind direction. You might even get, that buck with certain wind direction in a certain location, you know what I mean?
I, I
Consistently.
I need to dive better into that. I pay attention to the same information just as far as like every day I look at the lease and I look at which way the wind's blowing out there and
Yeah.
stuff and I'm looking at my cameras and what my deer are doing. But I'll be honest, I know these things are capable of doing more than I use them for, but I have not dove into
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And now you're talking on here about it and everything, and I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, I gotta step up my
It's
tactic cam game.
it's it's incredible because, like I said, Ryan showed me. We went on that New
There it
York
is.
hunt beginning of October, and Ryan was showing. It was myself, Cass, Anthony, and then of course Ryan on the hunt. He was showing us that the analytics that he plays, the analytic game that he plays, and he was showing us, like I said, wind direction. He can pick a specific camera and say, with tomorrow's supposed to be a southwest wind, I'm thinking about hunting this stand. How many, like I said, how many pictures are being taken? what are the quality of deer that are coming through there, what kind of bucks are coming through there, and it shows you all that stuff,
Yeah,
So
I got it pulled
yeah,
up right now as as we're
yep,
talking
yeah,
these statistics
yeah.
reports. That's crazy what they have on here.
That's what I'm saying.
Temperature,
And
everything.
so since I've been back, that's how I've been hunting. Although when I saw that big guy last Friday, my I changed my philosophy a little bit, or my I guess my game plan a little bit. I'm trying to hunt across the street hard until rifle season, because I'm going to try to get after one of those. Like I said, beginning of the year, I think I told you this. At the beginning of the year, we had 5 really good bucks across the
Hmm.
street, and the last time I hunted before we went to New York, they all came out at once. They're all within that food plot of 20, 30 yards, but it was so dark that I could barely see my pins, and I could see their antlers because they all walked right underneath me to get out to the field. And but I got to a point where it's hard to even pick up their silhouette, their body outline,
Hmm.
And so I waited and waited and waited and waited, and it was pretty dark by the time I crawled down. I thought I saw them walk off, and I got my stuff together and I started crawling down. And as soon as I hit the ground, all of a sudden I heard a whistle or a deer blow. I'm like, oh my gosh, they busted me. And then I went from that point, geez, until I want to say third week in October. So I went 3 weeks before I even saw single any of those deer.
Mm.
And so the last couple of weeks, I have one that's been showing up again, and I've seen him a couple of times, and so trying to get on him.
Yeah, for sure. Our
And he came out. He came out. It was yeah, it was another one of those. I started putting my stuff away, and I turned around to unhook my harness, and there he was, whoop, walking through the woods, right, right next to me. I'm like, oh boy. And so as he got by me, I sat down and knocked my arrow again, and he got out in front of me, and I ranged him. He was at 23, and I could see his outline and everything, and I'm thinking, okay, here we go. And then I latched my release on, and I went to draw, and as soon as I went to draw, he all of a sudden spun and turned and looked. So then I looked, and there were a couple does walking through. So sure enough, he took off after the does.
oh,
I'm
so
like, oh,
close.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So,
Wow.
but you were talking about the rut. I think tonight was the first night that I've seen. We always talk about how bucks get stupid.
Yeah.
They're not really stupid. They're really smart creatures, but they're they're a little distracted this time of year. That's
Right.
why we say they get stupid. They're not as cautious, right? Tonight was the first night I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen bucks going by me and nose right to the ground, and they didn't care about anything in the world.
Yep. Yeah. We've been seeing the same thing like I mentioned, and my number 2 hit lister, he's let his guard down. He's roaming between several different stands and several different cameras right now, and that is his range at the moment, and daylight and all the time. He's all over the
Yeah,
place, and if I can just get away from work and get out there, I
yeah,
hopefully would be able to fling an arrow at him. It's my number 1 that, I mean, he's an older deer. Like, you can tell he is physically and visually a lot older than all these other deer, and there's a reason for it. That deer, like, it's full blown rut. I have pictures of that deer chasing at night, but
yeah.
I do not have one picture in since I guess it would have been July. July, I had a daylight picture of this deer in velvet, and since then I have not had a single daylight picture of this buck. So,
Oh wow.
I mean, and it's not that he's roaming from far away, living somewhere else and coming close, because I'm
Uh-huh.
getting pictures of him as early as, just 30 minutes after dark.
Yeah,
he lives on the property.
getting
He
closer.
lives close enough that he's
Yeah.
showing up at the stand that quick after it gets dark, but he is not moving until it's dark, and only moving when it's dark. And it's driving me crazy because I'm trying to hold off on getting in there after him and trying to do it all right, but I'm just watching him like, dude,
Right,
come on,
right.
you got to do something different. I know you're gonna. I got to be ready to
Well,
jump on it when he does.
and that's why I changed my strategy for this week. Like I said, gun season starts a week from tomorrow. So between now and then, I've completely changed my strategy. I'm going to hunt exclusively over there because I know he's over there,
Yeah.
and I know he's chasing does right now. And like I said, he's not as cautious. At some point, he's going to have to step out. When there's a little more light, or step. You know what I mean? At
Yeah.
some point, he's going to screw up. And so I want to make sure I'm over there. He's not as cautious with the wind or anything. I've been really, really careful when I go out there and when I hunt. I've only hunted it honestly probably a handful of times all season because the wind wasn't right or something. The only time I could hunt was in the morning, and usually if I go over there in the morning, it's so dark and it's such a compact area that if there are any deer out there, you're going to blow them out of there and you're not going to see anything.
Yeah.
So whereas if I go out back, like I said, it's so big that you could walk out there. And I was getting pictures, like I said, in the morning last week. And that's why I stayed on the east side. When I was getting up in the stand, I was still getting pictures of deer over there, and I had already walked out there and got up in the stand. So like I said, it's about 400 yards all the way across the cornfield. In fact, there were times where I'll sit on the west and Heather will sit on the east, or vice versa. Actually, she usually sits on the west because that's where the most comfortable stand is. And guys, if you got girls that hunt, the girls get the most comfortable stands.
Yep, that's true.
We get the wire mesh that and make our butts look like great
Yeah.
cheese graters when we're done.
we get the leftover stuff that might have some safety issues at this point, but we're still making it work, or the ground blind with holes in it.
It's all rusting. You get the burrs sticking up.
Yeah. Well, so you're talking about these bucks and everything, but you have punched a buck tag already this year. So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about that.
Again, playing the stats. That was a big part of it. Like I said, I got a stand on the west side, a stand on the east side of the back cornfield, and then I got a shooting house actually in the woods. And if I usually hunt that, I actually don't hunt that until like middle of gun season, after the deer have been shot at or they've been around guns where they're a little more skittish. Than I usually tend to get back in the woods a little bit further. But anyway, I was playing the game. Where's the best stand for tonight based on the wind direction. I don't remember exactly. I think it was like a northwest wind actually. And so the stand I was getting the most pictures out of was my west stand. So I went and hunted that and got up in there, and I was seeing deer all night long. And just before dark, I happened to turn and look over my left shoulder, and I'm like, oh shoot, there's a nice buck right here, right next to me. And it's the same stand I shot that big one out of, that huge one a couple years ago. Same exact stand, and almost the same exact thing. He came around, and as he came around, he came by me at about 20 yards. And so I drew my bow back, and again, same thing. As I mentioned earlier this year, I said Omnia, the elite bow, the big thing that really drew me to elite was a let off on how you can pull it and hold and hold and hold and hold at full draw. And I had that with that group of bucks.
Yeah.
Because when they first came out, I didn't tell you this part of the story, but when they first came out in the dark, he was close enough where I could see his outline. So I pulled back, I drew back, and one of the other ones kind of busted me, and he jumped and spooked him off. And I sat there and held. And I finally let it down because they were both staring at me, or they were all staring at me when I pulled back. Going back to the 8-point I shot, I drew back and he was walking. I was trying to get him to stop. I was doing the man. He wouldn't stop, but he did kind of curve toward me. So he got closer than 20 yards. He ended up at maybe like 10 yards or so. And I drew back, and he got to a point where I was just about to shoot, but then he got behind it was a pretty big branch that's right in front of me. I'm like, I can't shoot yet. So then I ended up having to get up over the branch at full draw and then got back on him. And then he started quartering away a little bit. So I put it on the back rib and then shot, and he just jumped and then took off, and he went out in the field, and you can see the arrow sticking out. So went out in the field, did a big old circle, and then came back, and then I just heard a bunch of leaves crashing, and then that was it. And so I'm like, all right, cool. I got a buck. I know I hit him. You could see the arrow still stuck in him. And so I texted Heather. I said, hey, I just shot a buck. And then she goes, well, you need me to bring the quad out? I go, well, let's give him a little bit of time. I just shot him, so I'm going to get down. So I lowered my bow out of the tree stand. And as soon as I did that, I look up, and there's another deer coming right at me from across the field. I mean, he came from way across the field, and I didn't realize he was kind of on a trot. I'm like, huh. So then I had my rangefinder. I got my rangefinder up and looked through that to see what it was, and all I saw was just a massive rack. I'm like, oh. So he had the one that was coming had a bigger rack than the one I just shot. So, but that's how it goes, right? And then
That's how it goes.
my bow has already been lowered. So I'm like, okay, do I try to get it back up here and get a shot at this one? Because he was coming right at me. When he ended up stopping, I ranged him. He was at like 80 some yards. And so I just sat there trying to figure out what I was going to do. And when he started moving again, he ended up veering off and going opposite away from me. So, but at any rate, I got down and went over to look for some initial blood, and I couldn't find any initial blood. So I'm like, what the heck? So of course, when you don't find that initial blood, now everything speeds up, and everything looks like blood. And when you first lose the leaves here, you get those red leaves mixed in with all the other foliage that's on the ground, and those red leaves look like blood all over the leaves. And so it's like it was frustrating. So Heather and I kind of so by the time I got up here, it was already dark. So we just decided to get something to eat and give it a little bit of time. We went on a couple hours later, and I showed Heather where it went in, and we were looking all over, and we couldn't find any blood, couldn't find any turned up leaves or anything. We're like, what is going on? And so then I found a little speck of blood on a stump. And of course, I was frustrated at this time. I'm like, I know I hit him good. I just don't know what the heck's going on. And so I ended up walking over a wood pile, and behind me, there's a gully. It goes straight down into a gully, which the deer travel that gully, and then they come up on top of the gully. And then my tree stand is on the edge of the field. So they come up out of the gully and then walk through the woods and then come out in the corner, actually, and then come out and walk the field down the wood line, which is where my tree stand is. But at any rate, I go walking to the top of the gully, and I'm just kind of flashing at this point, looking for a white belly or anything. And all of a sudden I heard a bunch of leaves just go, you know what I mean? And typically when you blow them out of their bed, so typically when you wound them, they'll bed down and then expire at that point. So he was bedded down. And typically when you blow them out, it's just an explosion of leaves rustling. And then you hear, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all you hear. This was different than that. This sounded like somebody was sitting on the ground just going with the leaves. You know what I mean? Just kind of swooshing the leaves. And so after the swooshing stopped, then I heard a step, a crunch of the leaves, step. And I'm like, okay, I'm backing out. So I shut my light off and then backed out. And I'm like, that's got to be him. So I ended up just backing out, and then went out there. Actually, went to go out in the morning, but it was a cool morning, and I was getting a bunch of pictures on my camera on that side where he went down. So I thought, I don't want to go out there and blow all the deer out of there, so I'm going to wait. So I didn't go out until like 1:00 in the afternoon, and I went right back to that spot where I stood last, and I looked down in the gully and didn't see anything to my right, looked to my left, and there he was laying right there. So yeah, I went down and got a hold of him and drug him up out of the gully, and that was quite the chore. Heather was at work, so I had to do that all by myself, and it turns out it was a 200+ pound deer.
Wow.
So I was dragging his butt up out of the gully by myself, and kept texting Ryan, those guys. I go, hey, you ever see a 50-year-old guy have a heart attack? Give me a second.
Well,
So,
got the job
but
done.
but like I said, when you first don't find that sign of blood, and everything speeds up, and then all of a sudden everything looks like blood, but then nothing looks like blood, and you get so frustrated. But as I was dragging that deer up out of the gully, I happened to sit on a stump just to rest for a second. And I looked at the stump. I'm like, what the heck is that? There's blood splatter all over the stump. I'm like, well, the deer's over there. So this is probably from last night. So then I kind of tracked it back, and sure enough, there was just there was a good trail that we missed. We overlooked. So yeah. So yeah, it was a good deer.
Yeah.
Nice 8 point. Probably I would say probably a 3-year-old buck. So it was a good buck. Here in Michigan, you get 2 buck tags. One is just a normal buck tag. So if I wanted to go out and shoot a pencil head spike, so it's a spike with just antlers that long, I can go out and shoot a pencil head if I want. And then I have my second tag is a restricted tag, and a restricted tag means that they have to have 4 tines on one side. So So
Gotcha.
I ended up, yeah, I used my restricted tag on that because I had 4 tines on one side, and then I still have my other buck tag, but I'm after a couple of really nice deer. The neat thing here in Michigan, so you get a combo tag. That's what the combo tag is. You get 2 buck tags. One is the restricted tag, and one is the just a regular deer tag. But you can also use that combo tag. You can use it on late season doe as well. So you can shoot a doe with that tag as well. And
Gotcha.
so, and in Michigan too, they extended our hunting season. So deer hunting goes till January 12th this year. In the past, the last day you could hunt was January 1st on the late season doe. So, but it goes through January 12th this year, which is good because it's been, oh my gosh, the weather here has just been crazy. Like I said, it was cool on Saturday, but Sunday, about halfway through the day, all of a sudden you can feel the temperature just kicking up. And by Monday morning, it was like 65 degrees as a low, and
Yeah.
which is it's about 20 degrees warmer than what our average high is right now.
Yeah.
Was the low that day. So today was the first cool day we've had since Sunday.
Wow.
So yeah,
Yeah,
it's been really
I normally write off down here the first half at least of October. I rarely hunt in that window anymore down here, it seems like, just 'cause
mhm.
it's still so blasted hot down here in Texas at the time.
Yeah, yeah,
Unless I have a reason to, if my cameras are telling me something that I need to, then I'm normally
right.
not, because I like even this year my first hunt in a ground blind I think was I don't know, mid-October, and I'm sitting in there with my son, and I'm wearing a t-shirt and shorts. Like I'm
Yeah.
wearing boots and my shorts because it's so blasted hot. So
Mhm.
that's how it goes.
Yeah, we don't get as hot as Texas, but man, the early season here, I haven't hunted youth with my daughter just because it always seems like it's like 80, 90 degrees that weekend, and it just doesn't make sense, shoot a deer and then you can't even enjoy, and you know what I mean? It's because when I shoot a deer, I like to let it hang and let it, air out and that sort of thing, but when it's that warm, you got to get it taken care of right now.
Oh yeah,
So, but even here, I still go early season just because I like to get it, just because my philosophy is you can't shoot anything when you're laying on the couch, right? That's
right.
just kind of my thing. But it's not as high. I understand totally where you're coming from because that when I came down to Texas on that hog hunt, that was a it was a little toasty.
A little bit. It was toasty for me. Thought it was 110 degrees. Came down for a hog hunt in July. Well, you came down
Wow.
when it worked for you, and we decided to hunt. So,
Yeah,
but
heck yeah. So,
still a
but
successful trip.
but even up here, 80 degrees is typically not a good temperature to hunt in. But I still get out because we can tolerate it. I can tolerate it. You just dress down a little bit, but you can still wear your camo and stuff, and you
Right.
don't roast, you don't melt. So yeah, I still hunt early season. And it gives you a good idea of what's out there. You have all these cameras, and we have all the technology that we've talked about. But I still believe that the best the best education you can get is just being out in the field and understanding what they're doing early in the season, what patterns, and really what phase they're in. Because in the past and even this year, actually, I saw a little bit of kind of pre-rutting activity that first week in October. You know what I mean? Where they're making scrapes and they're sparring already, and they're doing all these things, bumping does. I saw a couple of them bump does that first week in October.
Yeah.
So that kind of gives you an idea that things might happen quick. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And it also gives you an idea of what bucks are where. And because sometimes you can pick a buck up on a tactic cam that's just traveling through, isn't necessarily making that their home, that area of their home. It's just traveling through. But if you're picking a buck up on tactic cam and then you go and sit and you're seeing him while you're infield, well, then obviously he's going to be in that area. So, I'm always a believer too that there is no greater intel than being, like I said, boots on the ground or up in the tree.
Oh yeah.
So
Well, and cell cameras they're an awesome tool, but I mean you know as good as I do, they're fixated on one area. You have
yep,
one
yep,
range of a picture that you're looking at. You can't see what's behind that camera or just outside one side or the other, right? So yeah, by actually being in the field and being in a stand, you see those deer that are skirting the area that you have set up for the camera, or that are doing things outside of just that visual window that you have. So yeah.
Right, exactly, exactly. And again, I can't tell you how many times I've been in the field. I'm like, oh, there's deer all over the place, but I'm not getting any pictures. You know what I mean? Just because, like you said, it's fixated in that area, and they're not exactly in that area. They're near it, but not exactly in it. In
Yeah.
fact, that buck I shot, he ran right by my camera. I didn't get a picture. So I trailed the blood. I trailed the blood trail back that next day. Went right in front of my camera. I'm like,
Really?
geez, look at this. Yeah, yeah, and didn't even get a picture. And didn't get a picture of him. So I don't know if he was moving too fast or what. So
Yeah, I know sometimes that can happen with cameras from time to
uh-huh.
time, but I had a when I was out the other day, I was hunting the stand where my number two keeps coming in, and he had daylighted by
Yeah,
then, and
yeah,
the wind was right, but we call it the camp stand because it's literally like 250, 300 yards from camp.
yeah.
And the only reason that we put it in was because a couple years ago, my dad, we had noticed that every time we would leave camp and drive down the main road to go to the rest of the property, like so many times we would just, in that initial stretch, just leaving camp, there'd be deer that would run across the road in front of the truck. And we're
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
golly, there's so many deer up here close to camp. And camp backs up to like 50 acres of mesquites that we really don't have
Yep.
anything on. So dad went
Right.
and scouted one day and found a little clearing for us to put this stand in. So we did that last year. And
Mhm.
man, just, even though I mean, it's within walking distance from camp itself, which in my mind is perfect.
Yeah.
It's covered up with deer. Like that is the prime spot. That's where I have deer in the daylight, whether it's does or
Right.
bucks, whatever. There's something there every morning, every evening. So as long as the wind's right, you could hunt there and be pretty
Mhm,
successful. But
mhm.
I was waiting on the wind is what I was waiting on before I went in there, and I had the stand is kind of on the southeast side of the setup and everything. So I was waiting for, or excuse me, not southeast. It's on the kind of on the southwest side of the
Uh-huh.
setup, and so I was waiting for like a northeast wind, and I finally got like a west northwest wind. I was like, all right, we're gonna
Mhm.
get in there because I've also from not just the cameras but from hunting that stand last year. I know that a lot of the deer enter from the east, so a lot of the deer enter upwind from me if the wind's right anyway. So I'm like, all right, we'll be all right. So I got in there and I forget what time it was, but like all the deer always enter upwind from me and
Yeah.
downwind from me
Yeah.
and behind me just I hear a doe start blowing and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like how many times have I watched deer come in from this way? This is what they always do, and now I have a doe over here blowing at me. But
Yeah.
she did her thing and left and everything. I kept hunting, and eventually I had a young little buck come running in. And I mean, Todd, we hunt over feeders down here in Texas and everything, but
Yeah.
that little buck comes running in, and like he was definitely trying to get in on some of the rut action for sure because he was nose to the ground like he was following a doe, but then he runs in and starts eating corn, and I couldn't help but chuckle inside because I'm like, this deer literally. He's looking around like he's going to be late for something. Like he's
Yeah.
gobbling down food as fast as he possibly can, like he's in a hurry. And I'm just
Right.
thinking to myself, this deer feels like he's about to miss out on something. So I thought it was pretty funny. He's just a goofy little buck that was running in there. But those are just some of those things that an
Yeah.
example of like that wind direction and knowing which way those deer typically travel
Mhm.
in that environment and stuff. It's like, well, that's not something I can tell in some degree on the camera. Like typically they
Right.
enter from one side, I can see it on the camera, but from sitting in that stand, you're able to
Mhm.
learn so much more. So
So the cool thing about our field across the street, our COVID field that we made, that the cool thing is, like I said, it's such a small, like from one end of the field to the other end before the woods get really thick. So the opening that we cleared out, it's only about 80 yards. So obviously I'm not going to shoot 80 yards with a bow, but it gives you a little buffer from when the deer come out of the woods and then work their way into the field and that sort of thing. But the cool thing with that field is I can tell you exactly where the deer are coming out, going to come out, or where to watch based on where the wind, what the wind direction is. I know exactly which way they're going to come out. Now tonight was kind of an outlier because they were coming out from all directions. It was a northwest wind, and typically when it's northwest, they come out of the southeast.
mm,
They, what I mean, nose right into the wind, and that's absolutely the case across the street. If it's a south wind, they're going to come out from behind me. They're going to come out of the north. If it's east wind, they're gonna come out of the west side of the pasture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy because you can set right up on it. Like I said, tonight was a little different. I couldn't figure out why, so I sat out there yesterday. I couldn't figure out why they were so jumpy yesterday because they were really, really skittish yesterday. Well, I think I figured it out with the way the Bucks were acting tonight. I think the Bucks have everybody stirred up over there.
Yeah.
You know, just the rutting activity that's going on. So I think all the deer are just kind of skittish. Now they were a little more calmed down, except for the ones that were being chased, of course. But
Right.
yesterday it seemed like every deer I saw it was pretty skittish. But if I go out hunting in the back of our house here on our side, I know where deer are going to come out, but it's not as easy as saying if the wind's coming out of the east, they're going to come out of the west. You know, if it's out of the east, they may come out of the east. You know what I mean? They may come out of the north. They may come out, but there are certain spots along the field edge that you would look. That's because those are their entry points into the field. You know what I mean? And so typically when I hunt out back, I just keep watching those spots where you typically see deer going out into the field. So whereas across the street, I set up specific, you know what I mean? In my stand, I set my body up specifically knowing that, okay, the deer is going to come out right there because of the wind direction, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. The other cool thing so when Heather and I went out, we didn't hunt out there last year. So COVID was 2020. So we hunted 2021 and then not as much in 22 over there, not as much in 23. So last year, but we put the Tacticam up and we started to get a whole bunch of really good bucks on video in September with that Tacticam. We're like, man, we got to get back over there and start hunting that field again. And so we're trying to figure out why, because we haven't tilled it. We haven't really worked it. I mean, it's still cleared out and it's just longer grass now. You know what I mean? And so Heather and I are like, well, there's really not much to eat over here. Why are they? But when we started looking, we're like, holy cow. So the vegetation that we planted during COVID is still growing underneath all the long grass. So we got alfalfa, and we still got some beets and stuff like that growing up through the bottom. So they're digging through and eating all that alfalfa and stuff. We're like, man, this is awesome. It's still growing. So
Wow, that's awesome.
So I might do a little work on it again just to kind of update it. And although with the bucks that we're seeing over there, I might just leave it alone too.
Yeah. That too. For sure.
Because there are trails all over through there. So yeah, last Saturday was a good. You know, I talked earlier about how it's not very good to hunt mornings here, except for on occasion. so contradicting myself. You know, I knew it was going to be cold. And I knew that it was going to rain. It rained Monday and Tuesday this week. It rained Sunday night. So it was like Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday. So I couldn't even hunt until yesterday, which was Wednesday. And I knew it was going to rain. So I thought, you know what? If I want to go out, and I knew I was going to hunt Saturday night because Tyler had basketball and we had Michigan was playing football. So we wanted to watch the game and that sort of thing. But at any rate, I thought if I want to hunt in the next few days, I'm going to have to go out in the morning. And it's going to be the coldest morning we've had yet. You know, and so I thought it might be a good morning. So I ended up getting up out of bed. And like I said, my cameras were going nuts. So I decided to hunt on the east side based on the fact that the camera on the west side was getting all kinds of pictures. And I was seeing deer from the get-go, you know, deer all over. I actually had a fox in front of me that I could have taken because we have what's called a base license here. And that base license allows you to shoot small game.
Gotcha.
Fox, coyote, rabbit, birds, stuff like that. So anyway, I had a fox that was running around in front of me right at daybreak. And then he actually went out to a couple of does that were in the field. And the does started like chasing him and like stomping at him and stuff. so I had that. And then I was watching bucks chase does and make scrapes and all kinds of stuff, all kinds of deer activity on the west side. So I'm thinking, man, maybe I should have chanced it and just walked across the field and set up on the west side. But as we were doing that, then I started to have does pop out in front of me too. And just before I went out, you know, I said to Heather, I'm probably not going to shoot a buck simply because of the fact that I saw a big buck over at your dad's across the street last night. I'm kind of set on that one. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I go, so chances are I'm not going to shoot a buck. She goes, okay, well, when you meet, shoot a doe. I'm like, oh, I didn't think about it. Yeah, okay, I'll shoot a doe if I get a chance. And so as luck would have it, I'm sitting in my stand and kind of look up across over the neighbors, and there's some does out in the field. There's 100 turkeys in the field at this point. 100 turkeys, and there's probably 20 deer scattered throughout the field. And there's a group of does off in the southwestern part of the field. And then I noticed one broke off and just started walking right towards me. And I'm thinking, yeah, she's not gonna come out, because that's probably, like I said, about 600 yards away from my stand. I thought there's a lot of distance between us. And so she's going to turn off. She's going to veer off at some point, whatever. And so I'm just kind of watching her. Well, sure enough, she ended up coming right to me. And um, so as she got closer, she got about 20 yards away. And then I drew, and she just kept walking. So again, I had to get over a branch. I got over a branch, and then I got settled. So again, that's that let off. It seems like that's my theme this year. The Omnia is really, I mean, it's worth its weight in gold just with the let off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're taking full
And
advantage of
so,
it for sure.
well, oh yeah, and I've had to. It seems like every shot I've had to hold longer than what I normally like, but it was, God, it was no effort at all. I could just sit there. Like I said, the bucks I drew on earlier in the season, when I did get a draw on, when they were staring at me, I actually set it on my knee and held it at full draw because I didn't want to move, because they were staring at me and I didn't want them to bust me in the stand. And so when they were able to look, when they looked away, then that's when I let down. But it was no effort, just to kind of set it on my knee and just hold it at full draw.
Wow.
And so anyway, I was at full draw, got around the branch. She saw me move around the branch, so she stopped, and then I was able to take her. So, and like I said, I sent my arrow right through her, and that was a big thing. I think I talked about that in one of my podcasts, that I was doing a lot of experimenting last year, trying to figure out which arrow was best to get the best penetration and that sort of thing. So yeah, I got passed through with the doe, and then as I was sitting there, right after I shot her, she ran across the field and ended up dying. And then as I was sitting there, I was just sitting there watching the turkeys. I'm like, I'm just gonna grunt. What the heck? So I pulled my grunt out and just grunted to see what will happen. A few minutes later, I look. Here comes a buck walking right towards me. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. It was a 9 point. That was at 9 point. And
Yeah.
he came, like I said, 10 yards away and just stood there looking at the turkey broadside. I mean, that would have been just a chip shot.
Wow.
And then he ended up walking off, actually towards where she came from. And then right behind him was an 8 point, did the exact same thing. 10 yards, just stood there looking at the turkeys, except for when he went off, he kind of veered more toward the flock of turkeys. And he kicked a group of about 30 hens toward me. And so when they came toward me, they ended up right below me, all right below me. And if you know anything about turkeys, they have really, really good eyesight. And typically with my bow, it seems like when I draw back, they scatter, and you don't get a shot. Now, with that being said, I've shot more turkeys with my bow than I've shot them with my gun. So again, contradicting myself. but
Just that good.
But yeah, exactly. But I was able to, they're all right in front of me. And so I started kind of pulling back, but I was trying to do it quietly and softly so they didn't see me. That one time I started shaking because they looked at me and when I was pulling back. And so I tried to hold it and I was like, oh boy. So then finally I just said, heck with it. So I ended up drawing it back. And when I did that, they turned and started walking away. And remember last year when I shot the one, I center punched the one last year, and it ran off with my arrow, and I never found it and never died. I don't know what happened. Well, one of the pieces of advice I was given was aim at the base of the neck and try to hit its back. You know what I mean? Because I have such a small vital area, it's really hard to hit. So as they're walking away, that's what I did. I aimed at the base of her neck and ended up hitting in the wing, and it came right out the front.
Oh wow.
And then I smoked the
Awesome.
turkey. So it was a really, really good day. And it's so just about a week or so ago, I was talking to a good buddy of mine, Mike Kettler, at school that I teach with, and he's really big into hunting. And he was telling me a story about how he hunts with a crossbow because he had an accident one time shooting a bow, and so the arrow shattered, and he has a bunch of shards still in his arm from it. So yeah, and so he crossbows, uses a crossbow now. But anyway, he said that he was sitting in his blind, had a flock of turkeys come out and had a really good time, give him a 20-yard shot. So with a crossbow, And again, crossbows are a lot stronger than a regular compound bow. They shoot three, maybe pushing 400 feet per second. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They're way up. Oh wow, three. Compound kids shoot through, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
They're
no,
stronger.
they're yeah. You can get them in the 5, 6. I think there's a
Yep.
couple that might even flirt with a 700 these days. So
Let's put it this way: I've never had a compound not go, shoot an arrow through a deer or an
yeah,
animal in that case. Anyway, he shot this. He goes, I center punched this turkey, and the arrow didn't go through. It's just a big loud thud, and it took off, and I had my arrow in it. He goes, I never found that thing. He goes,
wow,
I smoked it. I put a really good shot. I go, last year I did the same thing. Had a really nice Tom come in. I put a really good shot on him. Center punched him. He ran off with my arrow. Never found him. And so, yeah, that's crazy. So turkeys are really, really, really hard to harvest with a bow. But
oh
like I
yeah,
said, thinking about it afterwards, I'm like, man, I'm pretty fortunate because I've shot more turkeys with my bow than I have my gun.
yeah.
So,
Oh, works out that way sometimes. Well, that
well, and it's always during deer season because the turkeys know it's deer season. That's so you see them, just like
yeah.
the deer know it's turkey season. So,
They forget that there's some crossover right there.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Exactly. So it was one of those. So Saturday was one of those. Last weekend in general, we were talking about that. Ryan shot a really, really, really nice buck. It's a buck that he's been after for 3 years, and prior to that, that was his number one buck that he was trying to get. And so,
Yeah.
his dad unfortunately passed away, and when that happened, Ryan picked up the pursuit of that buck. So that's kind of a cool story. So he shot his on Friday. I shot my doe and turkey Saturday morning. Emily shot a really nice buck Saturday night, and then Chad shot a really nice buck on Sunday. So it was a pretty productive weekend last weekend for our staffers.
Absolutely, yeah. All a bunch of different critters hitting the ground in different states and different regions.
Yeah,
It was pretty cool, and I always get excited when the weekends roll around because I know that
yeah,
somebody somewhere is about to kill something, and it's
yeah,
gonna be a
yeah.
good time. So,
Gonna
well,
get active. Yeah, sure.
on that note too, Todd, like I know I feel like we could probably sit on here all night if the wives would let us
Jeez,
and talk about hunting and everything, but we are
yeah, I didn't realize it. I didn't
we,
realize the
we
time.
we are probably going to wrap up the podcast at least, but it's been, to your point, it's been a productive season already for the fall obsession
Already.
staff. Plenty of
Mhm.
deer season and fall left ahead of us, so I'm excited to see what else is going to happen. And as we mentioned at the beginning, hopefully get some of those stories and everything throughout the year on the show here to share those with y'all. You mentioned Ryan. He'll
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it'll be the episode after this or not, but he'll probably be the next one on here because we're gonna get with him and talk about that buck that he killed in New York and everything. So I'm looking forward to that. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's been a good year so far, and yeah, it's we're
You,
rolling.
you talk about a dude that's into analytics and really, really a student of the game. You talk about hunting is more than just hunting. You have to educate yourself about it. And he is top notch. He knows everything there is to know about hunting and wind direction and just everything, stand placement, everything,
Yes.
camera placement, travel patterns, and where they're. He knows exactly where the deer are leaving his property, where they're going to, and where they're going to come back onto the property. And yeah, that dude he's a real student of the game for sure. So
He
very
absolutely is.
educated. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to having him on the show and getting to pick his brain a little bit about some stuff and not just hear his stories, but hear some of the strategies and the mindset behind all of it. It just from a distance, like me being down here, it's been impressive to
Mm-hmm.
watch. And he's written a ton of educational articles and everything on whitetail hunting and deer behavior and some
Mm-hmm.
outside the norm tactics and that kind of stuff that we've published on our website, so folks can check those out at fallobsession.com if they want to read more on that. And I'm sure when we get him on the show here, we'll hit on that a little bit more. But it's been
For
awesome
sure.
having
Yeah.
him on the team.
And like I said, he's the one that taught me about Tacticam and all the analytics and stuff. And man, I tell you what, that has really changed my hunting strategy. And like I said, I've seen good bucks every time I've gone out now.
That's
So whereas in
awesome.
the past, I might see one every three, third or fourth set. So, but now it's every time we get quality bucks out there. So
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to
yeah,
dive a little bit deeper into that. Probably probably tonight before I go to bed, I'll probably be sitting in bed
Yeah,
on my phone looking at it.
just start messing around with it and just start looking at some of it, and you'd be surprised on some of the stuff. Like I said, so one of the big things that I noticed was that the majority of my pictures and all my cameras are on a first quarter moon. Well, today was the first quarter moon.
Yeah.
And usually when I sit across the street, I see 10, maybe 15 deer in a sit. Like tonight, I saw over 30 deer.
Wow.
And a lot of it was, they're being stirred up by the rutting activity, but still there were a lot of deer in that area. And again, first quarter moon.
Yeah. Wow.
So
that's awesome.
yeah.
Well, Todd, I appreciate your time and thanks for joining me for a podcast again. Always good to get on here and just chat and hang out and talk hunting and everything. And like I said, if we had more time, I'm sure we'd go all night. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, always a good time. Always good to see you, Sam. Always good to hang out and talk to him. So
absolutely. Well, for our listeners, thank y'all for tuning in. We're going to wrap this one up. If you guys want to learn more about Fall Obsession, our staff, and the stuff that we're doing, go to fallobsession.com and make sure you're following us on all the social media platforms. With that, I'm hanging it up, and I'll be back with you guys again next week for another Fall Obsession podcast. Catch you then.
Stay obsessed.
Stay obsessed.